Welcome back everyone to the Racing Reviews podcast. It's been a while since we've had a sit down, had a little bit of a chat about motorsports, about Formula One, the sport we all love, the sport we all know so well. And this week there has been so many talking points. I've been away for the past few weeks, so no mailbox, no content really, away from race weekends. Apologies, but fingers crossed, now the university studies are pretty much drawing to a close. The show should be back on the road from all fronts, all speed ahead, mailbox is back, more content than ever, and maybe, just maybe, a return of the live streams over on Twitch. So I'll keep you posted, as you all know, over on Twitter, over on the YouTube community page. So if you're not following on Twitter, if you're not subscribed, if that little red button isn't greyed out, you know what to do. But our focus of our podcast today, of course, you already knew this was going to happen. You've seen the title. Sprint qualifying. It's here. 3 races over the course of the 2021 season will trial sprint qualifying for a view of using it even more in the future. So many talking points, so many loopholes, so many benefits, so many dramas with this new qualifying system. I just can't wait to sink my teeth into this one. I'm on my own today. I wanted to get this out before Portugal, before Portimao, and so sadly the timing just didn't quite line up with me being ready to record, have a guest and have it all edited. But don't worry, a bit more of a chilled out vibe. Talking about a topic that is just not going to be chill, is it? Whatsoever. Should be a lot of fun. As always, your Racing Reviews podcast is brought to you, sponsored by Pit Lane Print, a sponsor I love so much. I approached them to sponsor the podcast, producing awesome artwork. 2020 and now 2021 helmet designs are my personal favourite. Danny Rick, Sergio Perez, Max Verstappen and the Aston Martin of Lance Stroll are the 2021 designs so far, but if you want something else, do not worry, they've got you covered. Circuits, cars, you name it, they've got it. Each design comes in multiple sizes, all with the option of framing as well. Love them to bits. I've got 4 on my wall at the moment, including the 2021 Danny Rick helmet and also the Grosjean design we've got on screen today. You just knew I had that one on my wall. Link in the description down below. And as always, thank you so much to Pit Lane Print for sponsoring today's episode. But without further ado, shall we talk about sprint qualifying? The big radical change, I would call it radical change, for Saturdays on 3 races over the course of 2021. It's safe to say it's got the Formula One world talking just a little bit over the last week or so. It's been a bit mad, and it's been a talking point in the pipeline, in the rumour mill for what seems like forever. Years it seems like we've been discussing maybe they'll put in a sprint qualifying, maybe a sprint race. But I, for one, never thought it would actually happen. And there's many reasons why, and actually the end product we have got now, I'm still surprised it's gone through if I'm being fully honest. But my rationale, my reasoning for why I didn't think it would ever go through is I thought it would just be too complicated. I thought, as we have seen and as we continually see all the time in Formula One, there's too many cooks in the kitchen. Fans, first and foremost, you've got to make the fans happy. What do we want more than anything? It's to enjoy Formula One, enjoy the race, even enjoy qualifying. In an ideal world, we'd all enjoy practice from lap 1 to lap 1 million that they do on a Friday and Saturday morning. The reality is practice is a little bit boring. And actually, for the vast majority of people, the Formula One weekend starts on a Saturday afternoon in Q1 and qualifying. And there's also many people that just watch the race. But it still remains the core focus of the fans is to enjoy the racing. To have drama throughout. You kind of then get splinter groups. From there on out, you get those hardcore fans of particular drivers, particular teams that, no matter what, want their team to win. You then get fans that want to see crashes, dramas from start to finish. And then you get other fans, I would put myself in this final bracket, and there's still many more splinter groups you can take from that. But then you also get those fans that want a fun race, that the outcome isn't necessarily known until the end, but perhaps want a bit more of a strategic element coming into it. A couple of pit stops, maybe rain at the start, drying up at the end. I'm already getting too excited just talking about it, but again, it all boils down to that core focus of enjoying the racing. And no matter what part of racing excites you, that's what we want to see over a weekend. And yes, there will be some people that say Formula 1 is predictable. It's going to be Hamilton, Verstappen, Bottas, Perez, you would say, on average, are going to be claiming victory in 2021. But there's still a chance of it not being them, and that's why we keep coming back. We've also got fans that go to the race weekend, and actually we can kind of partner this with the event holders and circuit owners themselves. What you want from a race weekend is very different, I would say, from when you're watching at home. Because when you're at home, it's very easy to turn on the race. Well, if you're not enjoying it, you can switch it off. If you don't want to watch qualifying this weekend, no worries, I'll just look at the result afterwards. But when you're attending a Grand Prix, which already is a ridiculous amount of money, something I hope that they will address, and I guess is a reason why they're considering changing the format, is when you pay to see a race, you have 2 hours of a race, maybe a support series, Formula 2, Formula 3 W Series, the Porsche Super Cup, that sometimes happens as well, but that's not guaranteed. So you've got all day at a circuit to watch a 2-hour race, which again, many people already will assume they know who roughly is going to win. I can see why, from that point of view, they want to make changes. And with the event holders already opening their gates on a Friday, the least popular day of the three, of course, you see 2 practice sessions, I can understand from their point of view why there is a desire to put more things on Friday, to stretch out the weekend, to get as much bang for your buck, if you will, for those attending the races and also the event holders themselves. And our final group, the teams and drivers. The most awkward of the bunch, because 95% of the time, they're never going to agree. They've all got different agendas. You've got your Ferraris, your Mercedes, your Red Bulls. Maybe not Ferrari so much these days, but Mercedes and Red Bull, they want to stay at the top. They don't want gimmicks. They don't want to be starting dead last, a reverse grid, because of a sprint qualifying. They want to be at the front. They don't want to be jeopardised by this. You've then got Haas, Williams, Alfa Romeo, a reverse grid. Well, that's a great idea. They're going to be saying. So already you can see why I've always thought for so long, this is never going to happen. Surely it's not going to happen. You've got to appease 3 main groups and still put on a great show for everyone. What they've come up with, I believe, to be the best solution to fit all 3 of those groups. You can see up on screen what we have eventually ended up with. Practice and qualifying on a Friday, so 60 minutes of FP1. We then have our standard Saturday qualifying is now on a Friday. And I think actually only having 60 minutes of practice, then jumping straight into qualifying is great. That is going to be so much more fun to watch, so much more unpredictable than our normal qualifying at the moment. So Friday is pretty much all good, except the fact it's on a Friday. There is going to be so many people that won't be able to watch qualifying. And that's just in our normal European races for us that live in Europe. But what about those in America, Oceania, Asia, when we've not only got European races, but also the flyaway races? Which could mean not only are people going to be at work on a Friday and may miss it, it may even eke into Friday morning, Thursday evening. Especially if we go to Brazil, which is one of the proposed ones at the moment, but it also could be Melbourne. Question marks there on how that's going to work. If this is a test for future seasons to do this every race weekend. Saturday, practice 2, 60 minutes, that's fine. And then we get to our sprint race, our 100-kilometre race that sets the grid for Sunday, which means our Friday qualifying sets the grid for Saturday's mini race, our sprint race. It's less than half distance of a normal race, so it's going to be under an hour. I think they're aiming for around 45 minutes. You can start on whatever tyre you like. Pit stops are not mandatory, so you can go gun-ho, you can do 10 pit stops, you can do no pit stops. And then on Sunday, we have our race. Sounds fun. Of course, we get more competition, more flat-out racing, so that's a positive. but I'm struggling to work out who this is trying to truly appease here. The fans get a bit more racing, but the end result, I feel, not only makes the whole weekend a bit more complex, certainly far more difficult to understand for casual fans and new fans trying to learn our sports. And that's not even mentioning this year when some races we have it and some races we don't. So I'm going to, for the remainder of this video, pretty much talk about sprint qualifying as if it was in place for every single race weekend, because that, of course, is the idea. If they think it works at these 3 races this year, which they are planning to do at Silverstone, Monza and Interlagos in Brazil, if they work, if they deem them a success, it will be implemented full time. So they've got to get it right. But I keep mentioning these 3 groups. I keep mentioning who is this trying to please? Because from a fan point of view, on the one hand, we've got more racing. Yes, come on, more racing. But on the other hand, is this going to make the race more predictable? On a Friday, what is at the moment Saturday qualifying, already I think we've got a great format, 3 qualifying system, Q1, Q2, Q3, that sees drivers make mistakes, that sees drivers on occasion, I would say most weekends you get a couple of drivers starting out of place. Well, if we now then add a qualifying in between, a sprint race, all that's going to happen, take last weekend's Imola Grand Prix. Valtteri Bottas started 8th, was it? 7th, 8th? With a sprint race, surely he's going to be able to fight his way through the field. This is not a good example, considering what happened to Valtteri, but in a normal race weekend, he should be able to fight his way through the field, and what was looking like a great, unpredictable start to the race, now Valtteri starts 4th, and we've got our normal top 4 on the grid. This also could mean, just kind of partnering with that, if someone has a great qualifying, George Russell gets through to Q3 because, I don't know, Verstappen and Leclerc had to take grid penalties, well, all of a sudden, that doesn't really mean anything because they've got back past them, Russell's now in 15th, and that great qualifying is in the bin. I'm happy to be wrong. And I think very easily, in our sprint race, we could have Verstappen and Hamilton on the front row. They take each other out. They take Valtteri and Checo with them. And we've got Norris and Ricciardo on the front row. So I'm willing to hold judgment on how much it's going to mix up the grid. But I've mentioned it already. Is it needed? I think we already have a system that mixes up the grid quite nicely. Isn't confusing for the fans. Is on a Saturday. Is accessible for the majority of fans. Is our new system overcomplicating things? I think it just might be. Is it needed? No. Is it worth a try? Now there's your question. Is it worth giving it a go? I thought if this ever did happen, we would see a reverse grid. I thought we would see Formula 1 go really out there, try something crazy, but what we have ended up with is a system that is a bit more conservative, that won't really benefit the back markers at all, and if anything is only going to benefit those teams at the front because the top 3 drivers score points. It's not many points, but in the season where already it seems like we've got a title fight on our hands, those 3 points for a victory could be crucial. And it's from that point of view why I can understand the racing purists are not very happy with the decision to put in sprint qualifying. Overall, as you can probably already tell, I'm on the fence with this one, because it is worth a go. I think last year probably would have been a better year to trial it, but considering we had no idea which races we were actually going to, fair enough, they've tried it in 2021. 3 races isn't too crazy. Silverstone, we have so much data at Silverstone. We went 2 races there last year. It's a great circuit for racing. More importantly, it's a great venue for overtaking. Likewise is Monza, likewise is Brazil. But is that going to give us a true representation of what it's going to be like for a sprint race at Monaco, say? It's probably not. So there is always going to be endless question marks with this until we implement it for a full season. And even then, Formula 1 may make the decision to not do it at street circuits, to change it for different races, which again is going to complicate things way more than they need to be for a simple qualifying, a simple race. So I'm very much on the fence. Let's give it a go. I will hold judgment until then, but you can probably sense I'm not overly optimistic with how good it's going to be. But something that I have been very consistent with over the 3 and a bit years I've been doing this channel, can we just... This may be too much to ask. I don't know. Can we just wait for 2022? The point of the 2022 regulations is to make the racing more unpredictable. First and foremost, to make the cars overtake each other, to bring the field together, and on circuits where racing isn't the most enjoyable to watch. I'm going to name Paul Ricard, I'm going to name Abu Dhabi as 2 circuits that spring to mind. Hopefully these new regulations are going to make these new circuits viable, are going to make them actually quite good. And circuits that historically have been enjoyable, Monaco. I would also throw in Barcelona as well. It was only, 2016? Up until then, I always enjoyed going to Spain. We always got crazy results, good overtakes, good battling. Hopefully 2022 is going to rectify those issues. And when people say, we need to get rid of Spain, we need to get rid of Singapore, again I'll mention Paul Ricard and Abu Dhabi, can we just wait and see in 2022? We've got this week, I'll talk about it in a moment actually, the Miami GP coming on board. The circuit looks a bit meh, but Baku did. I distinctly remember everyone saying Azerbaijan, Baku, a 90-degree circus was never going to be a fun Grand Prix, and 2 of them absolute bangers in 2017 and 2018. 19 not so much, but it wasn't terrible, and 16 was the first ever race weekend there. And actually, that serves as a great example. The first race wasn't good, and I think we could see a very similar story this year at Zandvoort in the Netherlands. I think that one could struggle with the current regulations of Formula 1 car. Yes, there's more chance for drivers to make mistakes due to the vast amount of runoff and gravel traps, sandy banking areas. Looks a lot of fun, but I think the race could be difficult this year. Next year, with 2022 regulations, I'm really looking forward to it. So can we just wait a little bit to see how good those changes are? Because when we get to next season, let's just say for argument's sake, we start the season off in Australia, and we have the greatest race in Australia we have seen for years. We've got a Williams on pole. We've got Kimi Raikkonen in the Alfa Romeo. Starts 10th, wins the Grand Prix. And we're all going, why did we need to change the format? Why did we need to add another DRS zone? Can you kind of see what I'm saying? We're aiming for this incredible revolution of change next year. I'm optimistic it's going to work. The whole point of taking so long to perfect these regulations is that it's going to cause unpredictability. It's going to cause dramas. It's going to mean the driver has more impact. Do we really need to be making these changes now? Especially in a season that is going to be the last of a generation? I don't think so. And again, I'm on the fence about this qualifying system, and maybe, and this is very, very easily could happen, maybe I'm being naive about the new changes. Maybe they aren't going to give us this incredible racing that we're looking for. But when I look at championships like Formula E, I've started watching IndyCar this year as well, they can do it. And Formula 1 is the pinnacle. So with these new regulations, that so much money, so much time, investment has gone into these new regulations, it's got to be good. It's got to be at least a little bit better than what we have now. So I would say hold off on any major changes until the year after. Albeit, try it now. If this is the last season of a generation, try it now. Let's try some crazy things if we need to, because if in 12 months' time it comes to the new regulations, they aren't quite as good as people like me are hoping and expecting, maybe then yes, we do need to start playing with structural changes to the weekend. So I've debated myself there, and I'm now thinking that, yeah, it's not a bad idea trying it this year. How have I done that? How have I done that? A rambling mess of a rant. Let's try it. Let's give it a go. If it's bad, like we did in 2016, was it? With our time clock, time attack qualifying nonsense. If it's bad, we can throw it in the bin. We can pretend it never happened, move on swiftly, and stay quiet. We don't need to mention it. Let's give it a go. But again, what I would say is I try and round up that ramble of a rant. Let's give it a go. Let's bear in mind we're doing it at pretty good racing circuits. I think it would actually be better at Australia, a circuit that traditionally is a little bit more difficult to overtake, is technically a street circuit. It's not really in the way it's built, but it is by definition a street circuit. I think that would be a better judge of character and better judge of how the system is going to work. But let's not jump the gun. If it's world class, great. Let's not do it all out for 2022. Let's wait and see how good the regulations are going to be and then move on from there. God, that was something. That's been building up inside me, I feel, over the last week or so. I'd love to know your thoughts in the comment section down below, and definitely, even if you're watching this video listening to on Spotify, over the next few weeks and months, drop a comment down below, because I want to have a debate on this. I really want to know what you guys think, because I am mixed, and though I want to try it, I'm not sold on that it's the right direction for Formula One, especially in the long term. It's good that they're trying things, and I think Stefano Domenicali, who's come into Formula One with a bang, and we saw it with Chase Carey, didn't we? He came into Formula One with Liberty Media, already so many changes, and some of them radical in terms of a brand new song, which, though we all know and love it off by heart now, at the time, I remember very clearly, people weren't happy. And my first ever video was talking about the brand new logo, and I remember that one in particular, though I really liked the new design, so many people hated it, loathed it. And there are still some to this day, but how quickly we get used to those changes, forget how much we hated it, is really interesting. But Domenicali, who stepped into these shoes, is this his version of the big changes? Exactly what Chase Carey did, changing the complete concept of how people consume Formula One, bringing in this new wave of digital content from Formula One, actually using and utilising social media. They didn't do that before. And Drive to Survive, a perfect example of something 5 years ago Formula One would have never done before Liberty Media. And again, it's another reason why I think Liberty Media have been a great change, a great influence on Formula One. Domenicali, he wants to assert his changes to Formula One, but there's no doubt he's a man who knows what he's doing. He's a man who's got a ridiculous amount of experience in not only the motorsports industry, but Formula One itself. Former team principal of Ferrari. He's no slouch. He knows his Formula One. He knows his business. He knows what he's doing. So I'm happy Formula One is in his hands. Is sprint qualifying his baby? His long-term project? By all means, it could be, but this has been an idea that's been boiling for quite some time. So I just wonder, is there something else growing under the surface that we're going to be hit with over the next few months? I've got a funny feeling there could be. Nothing too radical. Don't worry. Don't get too scared. And again, 2022, new qualifying system. Miami GP was something that Chase Carey never quite got over the line. Done and dusted now with Domenicali at the Hard Rock Stadium in Miami, in Florida. I think it's going to be a really fun venue. The circuit itself looks a bit naff, but as I mentioned earlier, I think this is one of those venues, one of those tracks that could really come alive in 2022. Saudi Arabia, another one that's come onto the calendar for this season, I think suffers a similar fate. However, the venue itself, under its current circumstances, I think I'd rather go to Miami. But larger than that, from a Formula One perspective, one thing I really hope doesn't happen, a trend that we are seeing quite often at the moment, is a championship that evolves into something like Formula E and we only now go to street circuits. Because yes, they can be fun, but in Formula 1, more often than not, they are processions. They aren't the thrill of cars flying off here, there and everywhere into the barriers like they used to be, because engineering, technology, the standard has gotten so much better over the last decade. The drivers, the standards, the vigorous training and simulations they go through means that crashes, even in tracks like Monaco, are so rare these days. Races can be a bit dull, a bit stale. For this season, I'm doing this off the top of my head, we have 5 street circuits I can think of. So we've got Monaco, Singapore, Baku, our 3 traditional street circuits. Then if you want to throw in Sochi and Australia as 2 extra, you can do. Oh, we've also got Saudi Arabia this year as well. That's, blimey, I can't believe we're going there this year. Saudi Arabia at the end of the season. So 4 actual street circuits. If you really wanted to push it, we say Hungary is Monaco without the barriers, but even more than that, Zandvoort is very, very close. It's so narrow. It's very close to a street circuit. But in definition, 4 hardcore, 6 actual street circuits. Throw in Miami, we're at 7, and that's quite a lot. I understand why they're popular. It's a business model that Formula E have followed, bringing the racing to the people, having tracks that are very difficult to drive, that put the drivers through immense stress and pressure to perform. I'm just not sure we need any more than that. And with our calendar, we're assuming it's going to be 24 races next year. Imola is going to drop off, you would imagine. Portimao, that we're heading to this weekend as well, will drop off. We'll see Canada return next year. We'll see China potentially return next year as well. Already the calendar is getting a little bit packed. We saw Suzuka this week get a 3-year extension on its current deal. Silverstone last year, Monza last year got extensions, which is exactly what we need. But I look at races like Imola last weekend, Portimao last year, hopefully Portimao this weekend, the Nürburgring last year, Hockenheim. Great circuits that should be on the calendar are not there. In favour of these street circuits, which not only are similar to one another, but they don't promote great racing. Is that something that needs to be addressed? Is that something that needs to be looked at? Because again, though we've got all these millions of circuits joining, returning, that we've just mentioned, Dominicale, mentioning only last week, a return to Africa is very much on the cards. Well done to Josh Ravel and Sim Dane for sorting that one out for us. And I'd love to go back there. I really, really would. 25 races. That's a lot. It's more than half of the weekends we have a year. Also, you've got to throw in testing as well. That's starting to get a lot. I'm happy being greedy. Don't worry. I am more than happy being a greedy Formula 1 fan. Give me more, give me more. But 25. I liked what we spoke about at length the last season, on many different occasions. But a revolving calendar, I think, could be a lot of fun. I haven't even mentioned Turkey yet. Turkey, what a race that was last season. That's not returning anytime soon. Can't we have a system where Europe is allowed a certain amount of races, the Americas is allowed a certain amount of racing, Asia, and then revolve them, allowing circuits that have big pockets to have their space on the calendar, but also making room for those tracks like Portimao, like Imola, Turkey, that don't have the budget to go racing, but are great for Formula 1, that make these storylines, that keep things fresh, keep things new. There was nothing I love more than last season. Mugello as well. I think there's just so many last year. But there really was nothing I love more than going to these new venues. It's a feeling that really does excite me as a long-time Formula 1 fan, just not knowing which drivers are going to get used to a track. I hate to pick on Danny Kvyat, but he really struggled at Portimao last year. Really struggled at Portimao. And that constant bit of change, the fear of the unknown, I think is fun to play with in Formula 1 sometimes. So I would love to see a revolving calendar, because without getting too carried away, we could even see potentially a return to Indianapolis, to Le Mans, to Brands Hatch, all of these historic venues, Jerez. So many, too many to choose from really, and now I am getting a bit greedy. But after what was an incredible 2020 season, one of the things we can learn is a new calendar, a fresh calendar each year, works really, really well. And again, mixing it up, spicing it up that little bit more, what they did in Bahrain last year also I thought was really, really good. 2 races, 1 venue, 2 layouts. Keeping costs down, making sure that Formula 1 gets its number of races that it wants in a season, but we're still getting a different variation for the drivers, a different variation for the fans, and again, throwing it back to what we spoke about right at the start of today's episode, I wonder if you could put that together almost as a package deal for those attending the races, making the races that bit more affordable by doing 2 races in one, rather than it being just a sum fee for 1 race. I'm no tourism expert, but I do like business, and that probably wouldn't save customers a lot, but in terms of value for money, of course that would be a million times better. So room to play with there, I feel, because so many circuits have multiple layouts. And if I really think about it, almost all of them have different variations of layouts. So it could be something to play with over the next few years. But one thing, before I round up, I am confident with, is Formula 1 is in the right hands. With everything going on last year, what an incredible, just brilliant year of racing we were treated to. 2021, 2 races in, just as good. That opener in Bahrain, under the floodlights, a real titanic battle between Hamilton and Verstappen. We were treated to something special once again last time out in Imola. A rare mistake from Hamilton. A Verstappen win, 1 point between the leading 2. A Norris podium. A well-deserved podium. That wasn't fluke. That was a great drive. That is a McLaren car that is going to get more podiums this year. That midfield, again, looks closer than ever. But again, you just throw that tiny little question mark. What am I on about? That massive question mark of 2022. Who blinks first? Who goes for it first? I don't think Red Bull and Mercedes want to give up this title. Will that mean someone else is a favourite for next year? Possibly. And I think I will leave that there. Because it's been not that long compared to a normal podcast, but on my own, my voice isn't thanking me. I can tell you that much. It's been a lot of fun. Thank you all so much for watching. A bit more ranty, very unstructured, as we love to do here on the channel. But just nice to sit down and talk Formula 1 with you guys. And with my other commitments slowly but surely coming down, it means I've got more time for the channel once again. Really looking forward for the rest of this year. Mailbox should be back very soon. Streams should be back very soon. A few more new series in the pipelines. Should be a lot of fun. Thank you guys all for watching. Pit Lane Prince, thank you for being the sponsor. As always, links to everything in the description down below. Thank you all very much for watching. Enjoy the weekend, guys, and I hope to see you all in the next one.